put in your 2 cents, but I think you might have a chance here. We've got a couple email questions too, from one from Lou, particularly Lou Brunswick. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I think Lou may have sent this in the last show, and he's looking for some help. He lent a friend $2,000 to start a bowling league. Nothing was written down, but one of his buddies witnessed this deal. His friend didn't follow through on the league, but won't pay back the $2,000. What should he do? I'll let you field this one to start, since I was monopolized the last question.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting problem, and again, there seems to be a witness there that might testify that there was indeed an agreement, and that there was consideration, which is the exchange of promises on both sides. So that would make it a binding agreement or a contract, and so in that situation. If one side breaches the contract, then the expectation would be that you would be able to recover damages, which is a money payment for that. Now, of course, we'd have to know the entire set of facts, but it seems like it would be a situation that would indicate to me that there was a breach of a binding agreement or a breach of contract there.
I think part of what Lou is alluding to is, the fact that nothing's written down, but as we said earlier, the fact that something's not written down doesn't mean that there's not a contract, right?
That's a very common misconception, even among law students, and that the idea that because we talk about the contract when we refer to the document, but of course that's just what we really should be saying is this is the document which evidences the contract or which contains the terms of the agreement. But the reality is the agreement itself is simply is immaterial in that sense. It doesn't have a physical presence really, and lots of contracts every day get entered into that are not written contracts,
right? Or more than written contracts. And I shouldn't be saying this to a law professor because you're going to get up in arms, but from many people's perspective, marriage is a contract. And so, is marriage a piece of paper that you sign that says marriage contract on it? I don't think so. Marriage is much bigger than that.
That's right.
In fact, I think the idea is more of an institution. But the same thing goes for the contract between an employee or an employer or someone who's lending money to someone else. That contract for that loan is a meeting of the minds, and it doesn't have to be in writing. The thing that's in writing is just the proof of the contract. It's an evidentiary issue.
That's right. And what's interesting about a situation like that is some people assume as well, so there's two sides to it. So some people assume if it's not a business transaction that it can't be a contract, which of course is wrong.
Right.
As long as there's some sort of exchange of something of value on both sides, it will be a contract. The other thing that usually surprises, especially first-year law students, is the idea that if there isn't something of value being given, so if it's essentially a gratuitous promise, that is not enforceable. So, for example, a pledge to a charity is not enforceable under normal circumstances because it's not a contract in the common law sense of the term.
There's no consideration. There's nothing going back. But in this case, Lou was giving the $2,000 for his friend to start a league, and his friend didn't start a league.
That's right. So that would qualify. And the fact that it's not what we would understand as a normal business transaction wouldn't affect the validity of the contract. If it's a binding agreement. Yeah.
Right. But I'm glad that you hit on that point, because that could be one element where the person could say, that they didn't have to pay it back because that money was not part of a contract.
And I mean, and if we're being technical about it, so one of the elements which doesn't often enter into account, but is the intention to create a legally binding relationship between the parties. I'm not sure, but this may be a situation where someone says, well, if they were friends, would have to look at the entire set of circumstances, and it seems just from what you've told me that it would involve enough. There would be enough consideration to make it a contract, but there would be a possible issue about whether the parties intended this to be legally binding.
Just to bring it down to the vulgar terms that I'm more comfortable with and less highfalutin ones, what is Lou got to do now that he's determined that he does have a reason for a lawsuit? What should he do now?
Well, that's another good question, and it's one that we deal with again, and when I teach my first year law students, because having a valid legal claim, as you know, is not doesn't always mean that the best course of action would be to sue someone or to pursue that claim in the court system, because as I certainly don't have to tell you, the court system is very slow, it's expensive, there are lots of downsides to pursuing something. So I think as an initial step, obviously contacting the person and asking for payment, if that, it sounds like that has been done and hasn't been complied with. So I think if Lou wanted to pursue this further, probably consulting a lawyer would be a good step to find out all the options. And sorry, did you say they're in New Brunswick? Or
oh no, Lou's last name is Brunswick.
Last name. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's certainly a lot of options, as you mentioned before. Queen's Legal Aid is also looking some community legal aid, but as a minimum, there's probably you mentioned small claims court, and small claims court is a good alternative for in some cases where the monetary value being sought isn't very high, because the procedure is simplified. There's less need of a lawyer. Not that it's not always an advantage to get a lawyer, but it's not necessary for a small claims court, and the procedure tends to be simpler and have fewer hoops to jump through, so to speak.
Right, the People's Court. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with more of an answer to Lou's question, and we'll move on to our other email question. You're watching Ask a Lawyer. I'm your host, Lindy McDonald, and we're blessed to have Hugo Choquette here, an adjunct professor at Queen's. And when we come back, we're going to answer some more questions about the law.